What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. So today we're going to be going over another topic in the series called Territory Wars for Dummies, and today we're going to be covering Chapter 2, which is going to be talking about understanding your roles and respecting everyone else's roles. So there are actually several different roles in Territory Wars, not just having TW officers. The first and foremost most important role is having a TW lead. Now, a TW lead is not the same as a guild leader, although your guild leader can be your TW leader at the same time. I highly recommend you find somebody else to be a TW lead for the sake of not getting burnt out, because being guild lead and TW lead can be a little bit overwhelming, but if you're up for it, more power to you. So what is a TW lead? How is a TW lead different from an officer? So a TW lead is basically a TW officer, but they are the ones that kind of like drive the ship. They're the ones that kind of get the final say. They're the ones that are kind of issuing out orders to the other officers. That way the officers can delegate to the rest of the troops, so to speak. So having a TW lead is very important. Don't just have a bunch of officers, and don't have your guild officers be the same as your TW officers. Like I said, if that's how you want to run it, more power to you, but there's a lot of burnout. I really like guilds where their guild officers aren't their TW officers, because I feel like TW officers, I look at them as more like specialists, for example. They're very, very good at one specific thing or one specific role, and that's what they're responsible for. And honestly, the less jobs you give out to people, the happier people are, honestly, because there's already a lot to do in this game. So having a TW lead is very crucial. All right, next, after your TW lead is going to be your TW officers. Now, your TW officers, okay, so right after TW lead is going to be your TW officers. And the TW officers is kind of like being an officer, you're under this like umbrella, so to speak. There's a lot of sub roles within the officer ranks. So your officers are pretty much going to be the people that are going to be putting out the bots, putting out the commands, coming up with the board, so to speak, and then you guys kind of collaborate together. Obviously, you're going to have a separate chat room for officers only. That way you guys can communicate, you guys can delegate on who's slacking in the guild, who's not following orders. You're the ones that are also typing up directions for the fights, for the counters. You pretty much are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the troops. You got to make sure you are making the war as easy as possible. You got to make sure the instructions are very easy, because you have to remember there's a lot of people that when they play this game, they're playing it on the crapper most of the time. It is a mobile game. They don't look at YouTube. They don't go on the forums. There's a lot of people that just play the game when they need to play the game. So as an officer, your most important job is to make sure you make it as easy and as simple for the rest of the troops as possible. Now let's talk about some sub roles for officers. A very important role is having a tester or testers. I think having multiple is probably the best way to go. But what is a TW tester? A tester is somebody that has access or has built a relation with somebody in their arena shard. So if you guys are trying to come up with new counters or test out datacrons or see if something works, that tester would reach out to someone who's a shard mate, and they would set the teams and they set the crons like, hey, can you set this cron with this team, and can you mod it this way? And most of the time people are pretty friendly about those things. So testing things is very important, because that's how you can kind of understand, well, one, if the game's working, but that's a whole nother discussion. Two, if your counters are going to be working, and is this something that you think the guild's going to be able to follow? Is this something, going back to our chapter 1, talking about your guild budget, you guys know the mods for your guild. You guys know the datacron drive for your guild. So is this a feasible thing for the rest of your troops? That's totally up to you guys and whether to decide. So having a TW tester, and like I said, plural, having multiple, is very, very important just for quality of life. Next, you need a scouter, okay? A scouter. Now most officers are going to be doing this across the board, but you should always dedicate at least one person that's their role to make sure they are scouting. Now, what is a TW scouter? It's very similar to GAC. GAC, you're going to look up your opponent.gg, you're going to see what they set, you're going to see how they perform, what kind of datacrons. You're essentially doing that for another guild. No, you're not going to be doing it for all 50 members of the guild, but you want to go and see how they've been doing lately for Territory Wars. I want to give you guys a brief demonstration on how to scout for Territory Wars. So what you're going to want to do, and I'm going to use my own guild as a reference, but you're going to go to .gg, very similar to GAC. Obviously, you're not going to click on your own guild, but I'm just doing that for the example. But you're going to type in your opponent's guild, okay? And what you're going to do is the first thing you want to look at is how many galactic legends they have. You know, you're going to want to take a look and see, like, what's the over and under on this the fight. And then, of course, the next thing you're going to want to look at is Omicrons. You're going to look at how many Territory Wars Omicrons do they have, and that's going to give you a really good idea of how focused they are in Territory Wars. You know, if they're like, you know, if you don't have 50 Phasma ones, I don't know what you're doing, but we only have 48 because we're currently under right now in members. Like, normally we have 50, but as you can see, 48 because we only have 48 members at the moment. So that kind of gives you an example of like what is this guild like to use? What do you think they like to set on defense? What do they want to use on offense, preferably? All right, this next step is very, very important. What you're going to want to do is you're going to go to the top of the guild page. You're going to go to the recruitment page. Okay, so now that we've clicked on the guild recruitment page, it's going to take you to this. It's going to open up a separate window. It's going to show you kind of like the guild's recruitment statement, how they're doing on territory battles, territory wars, you know, their max GP, yada yada. We don't really care about that. It shows you the raid progress. Don't care about that stuff. What we want to do is we want to scroll all the way down to their territory wars report. Now the report's going to show you a pretty extensive history of how they've been performing. So as you can see here, my guild, we lost, I think this was Ma Erodium. So we lost against them. It shows you the score that we got. So the score on the left is the guild that you're looking at. It's their score versus the guild that they're fighting. It shows you the date of the war and how much GP they signed up with. So as you can see, typically we're pretty much signing up with everybody. I think one war we were missing a few people for, like, people were sick or something like that. But for the most part, we're signing up consistently with all of our members. So that is another indication of if this guild sandbags or not, because you can look at their total GP. And then you can see how much GP they sign up with. Another hot tip for you guys is, and this one is very easy, but it's very effective, is, let's say for the sake of example, you guys are going to fight my guild. So you're scouting my guild page real quick. You can click on the guild that we just recently fought, and look at that. Their Discord, their .gg information's all right here. So you can literally go and ask and say, hey, what was their board? What did they say on you? Like, that is one of the things as a TW lead and as a TW scouter, or even an officer. It doesn't have to be a scouter, but like, you want to start building a good rapport with other guilds that are active in TW. You want to start building a good, relationship with them as officers, their TW lead, the guild lead. You guys want to start talking to each other, because I'm telling you right now, the more information you guys share with each other, the better it is. Now, obviously, there's some people that have secrets, some people don't want to give things away, but you're just asking, hey, what did they say on you? And in the future, that guild that you're asking might face a guild that you guys just fought. You guys can return the favor. They're going to ask you, hey, we're fighting them now. What did they say on you? And that way you guys are so much more prepared. Because I can tell you right now, most guilds, I mean, the Gauntlet's a little bit different, but most guilds typically don't change their defense a whole lot in Territory Wars. Most of the time, at least half their defense remains the same. The only time things change is usually when there's a Datacron set, a new one coming in and an old one going out. But for the most part, like, it's pretty straightforward, guys. So reach out to other guilds. You can look at the history. You can look and see how they're doing. And like I said, it doesn't hurt to ask. It really doesn't. Continuing the discussion of the officer role, another thing officers are going to be responsible for is going to be taking shifts in terms of guiding the war. So, when a new wall opens, you want to make sure you set out your orders saying, okay, like, we don't know what we're going to be facing, so we're going to get this first wall down, we're going to get that wall down, and then once you guys know, then you can call your counters for the guild. You got to make sure, though, that you are on it. You don't want a wall open, and then the rest of the troops are going to be kind of waiting like, hey, did anyone call anything yet? Are all the officers asleep right now? And I understand during the weekday wars, like on Tuesdays, those ones kind of suck because, it's during the weekday, everyone's usually working. But on weekend wars, people, and I get it, people work on weekends too, but for majority of people, most people have weekends off, I guess. But what was I going to say? Yeah, you guys want to take shifts. And I think that's what solves the problem, or it doesn't solve, but it helps the problem for guilds that have members all over the world. My guild, we have people that are in Europe, we have people over, I think we have one guy even in like Asia or something like that. But anyways, or no, we have Australia, not Asia. It's we have a couple Aussies, unfortunately. Anyways, sorry, Heinzie. Yeah, you want to take shifts. That way, when those people wake up, they're ready to go. Because, when the war is starting for us in the U.S., those people are either going to bed or they're already asleep. So you got to make sure you keep that momentum up for your troops. get those front zones down. The front zones are so crucial, guys. So crucial. The first 4 zones, those things gotta go. Those things have got to go. And as officers, you gotta be on it. When the next zone opens, you gotta call that counter, make sure everyone gets back in, because I can tell you right now, and you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about, the later you go in the war, the harder it is to get people to participate. And last but certainly not least, for the officer sub roles, is your theory crafter. You need someone who's always thinking on their toes. You want someone that's always coming up with ideas, and that could be your tester too. But your theory crafter can be sending ideas to your tester, because not everyone is going to have access to a shard mate that can test things. I mean, in a perfect world, you have 2 officers that are in the same arena shard. That'd be just beautiful. But yeah, you want someone that's always coming up with ideas, or even reaching out to other guilds. And you know what, like, who cares if you take their stuff, take their content? You know, if you see people posting stuff on YouTube for TW counters, just take it. You know what I mean? Like they shouldn't be doing that in the first place. But if you hear about things that work, you know, try it out, test it, see if it's valuable for your guild. But you always want someone that's thinking. And the thing is, as a theory crafter, and you know, I'm talking about myself too, it's okay to be wrong most of the time, because you know, we just don't know. You don't know it doesn't work until you test it. But when you are right about something, oh boy, is it great. So you always want to have someone that's constantly just, you know, someone that's just constantly tinkering and just looking for, you know, other options, trying to, you know, someone that's like an outside of the box thinker. I don't think that's the term, but anyways, you get the picture. Okay, moving on from the officers, I think that kind of covers everything about TW officers, is the troops. Now, the troops are pretty much everyone that's not an officer. The main objective as a troop is you pretty much are on standby. When you get your orders, you go in as soon as you can, as soon as possible. Do not put off anything till the end of the day. And as troops, the most important job you have, other than getting 20s, because 20s are amazing, the most important job as a Territory Wars troop is communication. Communication is the biggest thing, and honestly is it's what makes guilds succeed, and also what kills guilds. If you practice bad communication, like, it's just going to cause so many problems. I get it. Sometimes, you know, people can't attack because they got events going on, they're at work, they're doing stuff with family. That's totally fine. I'm not saying Territory Wars is the most important thing to life. No, this game is just a game at the end of the day. But as a TW troop, just let your officers know. Say, hey guys, like, how long will it take you to send them a quick message in Discord? Hey guys, like, I'm going to be out. I can't attack till later. That way they know. Because the thing is, when the officers are planning the board, let's say for the sake of a discussion, they're anticipating the first wall is going to be Ray, okay? And they're like, well, we only have 50 JMLs, so we're going to have to use our JMLs on Ray, and let's say 2 people are like, oh, I got stuff going on. If you let them know ahead of time, they can find replacement counters for 2. Finding replacement counters for 2 is not a big deal. It doesn't matter what the counter is, maybe with the exception of Leia right now, but it's not a big deal, you know what I mean? It's a lot better than them waiting and tagging you a million times to the point where you get annoyed, then you mute your notifications, and everyone's just kind of waiting on you. Like, well, so-and-so hasn't attacked yet, and, you know, it's 4 hours in and we haven't cleared a single zone. Communication, guys. Make sure you communicate with your officers, your guild, your TW lead, your guild lead, whatever. Communicate. That is so important, okay? The next item as a TW troop is follow the orders to the letter, okay? It is not up to you to change the counter. If there is something that happens, you point it out, sure, do it. But if they're calling a team and you're complaining, like, this is my favorite team, I like to do this way, and well, you know what? It's part of their plan. They're the ones doing most of the heavy lifting, the hard work. You just have to follow the instructions. That's pretty much it. It is not on the TW troops if the counter fails. Obviously, if you play it wrong, or if you're under geared or under modded, that's a different story. But if you follow the instructions to the letter, if they're saying modded character this way, we want this relic levels, we want these datacrons, that means they probably have tested it with their testers, or they've ran it before, or they've seen footage that it works. So they have information and they have the confidence to say it's going to work. You just have to go out there and do it. If it fails, you can let them know what happened. You can say, hey, this is, this something weird happened. Like, you didn't mention in the instructions that, so and so is going to do this. Let them know, because maybe that's something they missed. But for the most part, 90% of the time, if you follow the instructions to the letter, it is on the officers and the TW lead. It is not on you. You just have to show up on time and communicate, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, the officers really need to make sure they make the war as easy and simple for everyone as possible. That way you keep that efficiency, you keep that momentum rolling, you get those first 4 zones down, you get the ships, before it gets dark. If you get the ships before it gets dark, that's a great war. That means you guys are well ahead of schedule. Obviously it depends on how many guild members you have in different time zones, but for the most part, I think the first 4 walls aren't a big ask, within the first 12 hours. So guys, I think that's gonna pretty much wrap up chapter 2. I think we covered a lot of information talking about, understanding your role and respecting other people's roles. If you guys have any questions about anything or any suggestions, please leave them down in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed today's video, if you learned something, please be sure to leave me a like, and if I've earned it, subscribe. Other than that, guys, I will catch you all in the next video. Take care and have a great day.